What's going on, guys? So recently I showed that I went to an antique shop and I picked up a couple different things, and one of those things was this knife sharpener, and I want to do a separate video just talking about it a little bit here briefly. Really interesting. I saw this was with you know, a bunch of kitchen stuff, some different silverware and, like, you know, cups and bowls and all that kind of stuff, but it was kind of like jammed in here, and this handle is what caught my eye. And the handle actually, it looked like something fishing related. I have no idea why. Maybe it's the color combination. It's kind of like a cream off-white with the red. It just looks like an old fishing something, right? I don't know why. That's just the first thing that popped up in my head. And when I pulled it out, I immediately knew what it was. And they wanted $5 for it, so I gave $5 for it. Now I own it. You know, I like the history of things. I like vintage stuff. Obviously, anything knife related is pretty cool. For me specifically, but it's also very useful. All right, so something I can actually use. So if I zoom in here real quick, we can take a look at the markings on this, and it says made in the United States of America, and I believe those are the only markings. All right, so there's no branding or anything here, just a wood handle. All right, and then obviously we have the sharpening aspect of this, which uses these discs. Okay, these are hardened steel discs. There's 8 of them, and this works exactly as the Rada sharpening system does that I just talked about in a recent video as well. Really simple concept. You have these floating discs that move around, and as you drag your blade through, the edge of your blade goes down into the V that is between the discs, and it basically just rubs metal off the sides, which brings it to a point which therefore sharpens it, right? So exact same concept, only there's more discs and it's in a different package, right? So pretty cool that this also has these 2 flared out pieces. They're, you know, cut out from the design and flattened, and that is so that you could bolt this down to a workbench or a table. So you have 2 screw holes. You can really, you know, crank this down on something. All right, so that you don't have to worry about holding it or moving around. So if you're using it frequently, or if you just want it in a certain spot, maybe in your kitchen, or again, you know, workshop or garage or something. But that is a really neat feature that you can crank those down. Pretty cool. But it has an angled handle, so you can hold this up like this. And I'll show you how it works again if you haven't seen the other video. This is a random knife that I do not remember where I got. This is a very ornate, very heavy Damascus knife with some, looks like some bone handle scales and some nice mosaic pins. Very cool. Unfortunately, it's got some blade play. But anyway, this one, I grabbed this just because this is fairly dull. So I wanted to use a candidate, and most times knives around me are sharp unless I've just used them. So all we would do is start from the bottom, have a little bit of a downward angle, and drag it through. That is it. And you can feel the resistance. I could feel that this is grabbing the side of that blade. And it doesn't take very much pressure. This happens to be a heavy knife, but you don't want to push down very hard. You're just dragging it through. And that is it. So we're going to attempt to... Oh, I should have done it before. With a little piece of paper here. But yeah, just showing this functioning here. Does not take all that much. This is literally scraping metal off of each side. And I'll do a quick little test cut here. Whoop, that didn't do anything. I just tore that. All right, that actually cut. I cut and then it grabbed. That was a nice slice. So you can see it is actually cutting. Before, this wasn't cutting at all, so it is sharpening. I mean, you can work the whole edge. I'm not that interested. I just want to give a quick little demo on here, but this does work. This works great. You're not going to throw your, you know, brand new, whatever expensive knife, you know, insert your favorite expensive knife here, you know, to use with the sharpener, but, you know, your kitchen knives, maybe your fishing knives, whatever, just, you know, your beater knives that you just want a quick edge on, you know, it's getting kind of dull, right? Just zip, 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 and you're good to go. You don't have to worry about, you know, what it looks like so much. I mean, it's not damaging the blade, but again, I wouldn't put something super expensive in there. You know what I mean? But yeah, so that works. Again, just like the Rada sharpening system. This just happens to have single wheels or single discs, but it's no different. Same design, same concept. But yeah, so I just want to share that. I thought it was pretty neat. So this is just something that's going to sit in my collection of sharpening tools. It may or may not get a lot of use. I mean, I do like this just for a quick sharpening job, but it's fitting for certain places. You know what I mean? If I do end up moving eventually, which I'm sure it's inevitable. I'm not going to die in this house, hopefully. Hopefully not, because I don't plan on living here forever. Yeah, I mean, I love to throw this in a workshop and actually just bolt this down, off to the side, out of the way, and just if I, need a zip, zip, zip real quick, then so be it, So yeah, it's just a cool little vintage piece of knife history. And I love it. I've seen these before, but only in, old books and stuff, reference books that I have. But I've never actually seen one in person. And so it's pretty exciting when I, pulled it out of that little box there with all the utensils and knew exactly what it was, and the price was right. I probably would have paid 15 or 20 bucks for it just to have it, but $5 is okay with me. So that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Post your comments down below what ways you like to sharpen your knives. I use a variety of things. It's a question I get very frequently on social media is, I need to sharpen my knives. What should I get? Well, it's hard to say. I mean, I would say sharpening systems are like diets. They all work. They really do all work if you stick with them, and then you follow it properly. But some are obviously more convenient. Some are quicker to, use. Some take more time. Some are better for higher end knives and harder steels. That's really what it comes down to, is all these big expensive systems and more expensive stones. Those are great for, nice knives that have very hard steel. But if you're using more affordable knives with softer steels, you can get away with using any sharpening system. It's going to help you out. It's going to get a sharp knife. But don't forget too, is that some of the cheaper knives, you got like a $15, $20 knife. In a lot of cases, that blade literally cannot get as sharp as some other steel just because of how the steel is built. Especially these powdered steels. All the crucible metal stuff is pretty amazing, but the actual grain structure of the metal can physically get thinner. So you can't compare super cheap knives with super expensive knives with higher end materials because of that. But at the end of the day, a sharp knife, even the cheapest of knife, this one, I mean, I don't know the exact price offhand, but being an unmarked knife that looks like this, I want to say this is more than likely made in Pakistan or similar. It's beautiful looking. It looks really nice. It feels fine. It's good at work. It's sharp, but it's not the highest quality Damascus. It is genuine Damascus, which is nice. Which, by the way, oftentimes you could tell by looking at the spine. It's not a guarantee, but when you see Damascus like this, sometimes that could just be acid etched in, so it looks like Damascus, but oftentimes company won't do that to the spine of the knife. When you see it in the spine, it's because there's actually layers of steel. But even though it is Damascus, it's a lower quality Damascus. But I forgot the point that I was making. Yeah, cheap knives just can't get as sharp, but they can get totally sharp enough, totally usable. You know what I mean? You got a brand new $400 knife out of the box, and you go to cut something, you're like really impressed, like, wow, that's awesome, right? That's super sharp, but it more than likely has a nice steel in it, all right? And it's more than likely really refined from its maker or factory. Whereas, again, the $20 knife, it might be really sharp out of the box, but it's not going to stay as sharp as long, more than likely. Again, these are vague statements. I mean, it just depends on what steel it is. Who knows, maybe get a $20 knife, from someone at a garage sale that was really a $300 knife. But I'm using generalities here. Cheaper steels, softer steels. They're easier to sharpen. That's always their pros, but the cons are always that they don't hold an edge as long. So that's the spectrum, right? So let me give you a visual here, okay? Here's a spectrum. We got two sides. Over here, you got super soft steels. They do not stay sharp very long, but they're really, really easy to sharpen because they're soft. Done. Over here, these knives, they stay sharp, it seems like forever, but eventually when they get dull, if you let them get dull, they're really hard to sharpen. So you're and nothing, because you don't, and that's a thing that I get all the time too. Like, dude, I got this knife, it's like 200 bucks, it's got this steel in it, and like, no matter what I do, I can't get it sharp. Well, maybe your system just isn't high enough quality stones, or maybe you're not doing the proper thing. It's very subjective, but in a lot of cases, you're just either not putting enough time in, or the quality of stones isn't enough to actually start, really getting into that metal and sharpening it. I think more times than not, if you're used to sharpening $20 knives and it takes 5 minutes, a couple passes here, a couple passes there, whatever system you're using, and then you go to use, you know, something with a high-end steel like a CPM S35VN or something, right? And you do the same 5 minutes of sharpening, but nothing happens. It's not sharp. That's why. It's a much harder steel. It takes a lot more effort, a lot more passes on that same system to actually get you to the same place. So there's all kinds of different variables when it comes to sharpening. And it is hard to answer those questions. And I try my best talking to people, and I try to, you know, ask, okay, well, you know, number one, what type of knives are you using? And a lot of times people just want a general answer, you know, which is fine. They just want a quick, like, hey, what's a good sharpening system? Well, the one that you have, I guess, because it's probably going to work fine. But it really depends on what type of steels that you're trying to sharpen, what type of knives, like blade shapes, sizes, how often you're using them. Because if you're not using your knives very often, you don't need a really expensive sharpener. And there's people like that too, or maybe you got like a, I don't know, a $50 knife that you use once a month, you know, and then you're investing $300 in a sharpening system. Totally unnecessary. But then vice versa, I got guys who have, you know, dozens of $100 knives, and, you know, they got like a $15 sharpening system and they don't know why their knives can't stay sharp. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff to think about there. There's a lot of stuff as far as sharpening goes that is information that I've gathered over many years, over 2.5 decades of talking about knives and sharpening and stuff like that. But it's hard to compress that into one quick conversation online. But there's a lot to know, and there's plenty of people on YouTube that are just like me, and they love knives, and they talk about this stuff. I'm sure there's people who focus very specifically on sharpening. Just, you know, check it out, Google it, do a search on YouTube. There's so many people who take sharpening as their own hobby. Like, yeah, I love knives, but I love sharpening. There's those people. I'm the other way around. I love sharpening, but I love knives. You know what I mean? So I don't focus that much on sharpening. I just happen to have accumulated some information over the years of having to sharpen out of necessity, you know. But as far as like what's the best, it's subjective. There's a lot of good systems out there. The best one is the one that you can use efficiently. That's really the best answer I can give you as far as that goes. But anyway, that is it for now. I've babbled on about sharpening, which is appropriate because this video was about an old sharpener. But you know, if you just want to get the job done quick, this is less than 10 bucks. I got this for 5, but who knows what it costs online. You can just get a quick job done with something like that. But I just thought this was interesting. It was cool. It's a cool little throwback I wanted to share with everyone in case you've never seen that before and you happen to see one at a garage sale. Buy it because it's cool and it is effective, you know, but I wouldn't use it on your super expensive stuff. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a fantastic day. Stay sharp, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.